The NASAT Imperial battle fleet burst from hyperspace portals, casting city-sized shadows across Earth's helpless nations. Humanity now faced two futures: defeat the alien invaders, or become enslaved cattle under reptilian overlords. There was no other choice. Caleb Scott's heart pounded in his chest. The former fighter pilot and aerospace engineer sat in a stark concrete bunker buried deep underground. Expressionless men in suits had dragged him here. He'd thought it was about his unpaid parking tickets, until a grizzled Army general pulled up classified photos of crashed alien ships on the projector screen. The general spoke without emotion. "Mr. Scott, we face the gravest threat in human history. Everything you are about to see is classified at the highest levels. 1 week ago, an alien fleet arrived in our solar system. Their technology is centuries beyond ours. They have already crushed our orbital defenses. Right now, alien dropships are landing in our cities, disgorging armies of lizard troopers armed with energy weapons and force shields we can't even scratch." Caleb watched shaky camera footage of the invasion, eyes wide. Alien walkers the size of buildings smashed human tanks like tin cans. Blue plasma beams sliced burning holes through human soldiers and fleeing civilians alike. The White House was a smoking crater. "Mr. Scott, you've been recruited to a task force comprised of the most brilliant scientific minds left on Earth. Your mission: find a weakness, any weakness, in their technology. You are humanity's last hope." Caleb turned to the wreckage of an alien fighter laid out on exam tables. He swallowed hard. If he failed, everyone on Earth would become alien slaves or be exterminated. The screams of the dying already filled the streets above. The clock was ticking before the human race's time ran out altogether. Caleb pored over the alien fighter wreckage for hours, examining every component with intense focus. Pieces of exotic technology littered the stark concrete room. His hands flew across touch screens, inputting strings of complex equations and algorithms. Suddenly, Caleb's eyes lit up. "That's it!" he exclaimed, jumping to his feet. He pulled up a schematic on the main display, jabbing a finger at the screen. "Look here, the NASAT shields all operate on a singular resonant frequency in the terahertz range. If we could generate an EMP at the precise counter frequency, it would cause catastrophic harmonics in their shield matrix, effectively shattering it." The other scientists crowded around, studying the readout with amazement. "My God," one breathed. "He's right. This could change everything." Caleb nodded grimly. "Not just their shields. From what I can tell, their weapons are tied into the same power network. A strong enough pulse could knock it all out at once. Shields, guns, engines. A colossal reset that would take them down in an instant." The room erupted into excited chatter as the implications sank in. For the first time, a ray of hope cut through the despair. Caleb raised his voice above the din. "It won't be easy. We'll need to lure a big chunk of their forces together and hit them all at once to make it count. But if we do this right, we could end the war in a single blow." The task force commander, an iron-jawed Army colonel, fixed Caleb with a searching stare. "What exactly are you proposing, son?" Caleb took a deep breath. "We build the biggest damn EMP bomb in history, then spring a trap. Feign a surrender to get them clustered in kill box of our choosing. When they think they've won, we zap the bastards to kingdom come and mop up the pieces." The colonel rubbed his chin, considering. The room fell silent, hanging on his word. Finally, he gave a sharp nod. "It's ballsy, but it may be our only shot. I'll kick it up the chain ASAP. If the brass signs off, you'll get whatever you need. Godspeed, eggheads. We're counting on you." With a newfound sense of purpose, Caleb and his colleagues threw themselves into the work. Spec lists were hastily drawn up. Industrial machinery retooled on the spot. Components from disparate sources flowed in, and Caleb welded them together with feverish intensity. To generate the staggering power needed for the EMP pulse, they would need to strip entire cities of transformers and transmission cables, but no one flinched at piling sandbags in the dark if it meant deliverance from annihilation. As the weapon slowly took shape, the military half of the plan kicked into gear. Recon spotters, moving by night, surveyed defensive formations to pinpoint the EMP ground zero. A place was found, a sprawling valley walled in by sharp granite peaks. When the pulse was triggered, the mountains would bounce the energy back on itself, multiplying the amplitude by orders of magnitude to produce a truly cataclysmic blast that would fry every invader for miles. Tense negotiations soon opened between human ambassadors and Altair, the stony-faced Nasat Supreme Commander. The aliens were initially suspicious of the humans' abrupt capitulation, until an elaborate display of pre-recorded destruction and mayhem was produced, supposedly showing the fleet poised to rain death on the last holdouts. Mollified by these faked acts of obliteration, Altair agreed with barely disguised glee to accept mankind's formal submission. As the day of reckoning approached, alien ships packed the valley rim to rim, disgorging a gleaming horde of reptilian troopers and their skittering war machines. Their polished carapaces glinted smugly under the electric sky. As far as they knew, they were here to subjugate the galaxy's newest slaves and gain glory in the bargain. Concealed in tunnels and under camouflage netting, the human forces waited with the EMP superweapon primed. Every pair of eyes seethed with vengeful anticipation at the coming payback. Caleb huddled in a mechanical exoskeleton suit he'd helped develop. The powered servos and titanium alloys would add strength and survivability to the close-in fighting to come. At a pre-planned signal, the human contingent guarding the EMP site pantomimed a panicked rout, fleeing from the deadly device as if it was a trap meant for them. Catching the bait, Altair ordered his troops to seize the weapon and butcher Earth's best hope of resistance. Thousands of screeching alien warriors poured into the prepared killing field, racing to secure their trophy. Caleb watched them flood in on the vid displays with breathless expectation and white knuckles. Just a few more moments, and... "Now!" he roared into his headset, and with one fateful keystroke the EMP bomb pulsed to life. An incandescent wall of distortion rolled over the valley, so intense it dimmed the very sun. Every alien device shorted out like cheap fireworks under the onslaught. Personal shields winked out, weapons melted, vehicles crashed as gravity claws released. For a heart-stopping instant, the Nasat horde stood dumbfounded and naked, unable to process the sudden reversal of fortunes. Then as one, the human forces surged from cover in a tidal wave of vengeful fury and hot lead. Tens of thousands of conventional slug throwers spoke in unison, stitching the confused and unprotected aliens with savage crossfires of armor-piercing rounds. Tanks and artillery churned the valley into a charnel house, blasting away with cannons and incendiaries at the now defenseless extraterrestrials who'd tormented them so long. No mercy was asked or given, only a harvest of retribution for months of horror. Caleb sprinted into the man-made hell in his exosuit, servos whirring with each stride. He cut down invaders by the dozens, pouring 50-caliber streams and explosive rockets into their flailing ranks. Spotting Altair's command skiff trying to escape the carnage, Caleb ignited his jump jets and hurtled towards the vehicle. The imperious warlord stumbled out, now ashen-faced with terror, energy, sword and claw. The two closed the distance in a single bound, and the energy blade screamed as it clashed with Caleb's kinetic buckler in a spray of chaotic sparks. Altair was good, inhumanly fast and strong, darting about like a demon and scoring smoking gouges into Caleb's armor. But the human was driven by something more, the righteous wrath of a species pushed to the brink, yet unbowed. Caleb weathered the onslaught through sheer force of will, giving as good as he got, bringing armored fists and crushing mechanized kicks to bear until his foe faltered. With a final Herculean effort, Caleb grabbed the warlord's sword arm and snapped it like a twig. Before Altair could even scream, Caleb caved in his skull with an earth-shattering punch. The tyrant fell dead, and with him, the Nasat's Imperial dreams. In every corner of the valley, the story played out in microcosm. Now that their masters were fallible and their tools were junk, the invaders lost all will to fight. They died in droves, blown apart, and beaten down, until only terrified fragments remained to flee back to their grounded landing ships. Fast response airborne units boxed them in, strafing any alien survivors and blasting the motherships apart one by one to ferrous scrap. Any notion of restraint had long since evaporated. Humanity would settle for nothing less than bloody, unambiguous revenge. Within a mere 10 hours, it was over. The conquering Nasat army, once the masters of all they surveyed, were a memory. A charred, dismembered memory that human forces unceremoniously piled into great bonfires. Wild celebrations erupted across the unshackled earth. People wept and danced in the cratered streets, scarcely daring to believe their long nightmare was ended. And everywhere, on the lips of soldier and civilian alike, was spoken the name Caleb Scott, unlikely savior of the world, who'd seen the enemy's one weakness and rallied a planet to victory. But alone in his workshop, surrounded by the implements of unprecedented death he had wrought, Caleb couldn't share in the elation. A nagging sense of unease chewed at him, dismissing the triumph as tenuous and incomplete. Somewhere out there in trackless oceans of space, the Nasat had an empire, a species, and an industry. They had tasted the sting of an upstart planet's defiance, and he feared in his bones that they would not let such an insult stand, that when they next darkened the skies of Earth, they would come in all their might to settle scores. Caleb's fears proved prophetic. Just weeks after Earth's victory, intelligence reports painted a grim picture. The Nasat were marshalling an even larger armada, hell-bent on retaking the planet that had humiliated them. This time, they'd be ready for the EMP trick. Recognizing the existential threat, world leaders unanimously appointed Caleb to head up the new interdimensional defense initiative. He wasted no time assembling a dream team of Earth's brightest scientific minds. Their mission: reverse engineer every scrap of alien tech they could get their hands on. Days blurred into weeks as Caleb's team worked around the clock. Sleep-deprived scientists pored over alien circuitry, unlocking the secrets of Nasat energy weapons and force fields. The breakthrough came when Dr. Eliza Chen cracked the hyperdrive engine's quantum entanglement matrix. "Holy shit, we did it!" she shouted, startling Caleb from his own work. "We can build our own FTL drives now." The implications were staggering. Humanity could take the fight to the stars. Construction efforts exploded worldwide. Factories retooled to churn out alien-derived tech. Massive ion cannons sprouted from city centers. Shield generators hummed to life, encasing population centers in shimmering domes of energy. Off the coast of Hawaii, the impossible became reality. A space elevator stretched skyward, its carbon nanotube tether disappearing into the clouds. At the top, orbital shipyards took shape, churning out Earth's first starfighters. Caleb found himself in a flight simulator, his mind interfacing directly with an alien craft's neural link. The sensation was indescribable. He could feel the ship as an extension of his own body. "Holy crap!" muttered the Air Force colonel next to him. "I thought I was a hot-shot pilot before, but this is something else entirely." Then came the day they'd been dreading. Alarms blared as sensors detected a massive hyperspace rupture. The Nasat fleet materialized in orbit without warning, their ships blotting out the sun. Caleb sprinted to his X-3 experimental fighter, the neural link sparking to life as he settled into the cockpit. "All wings, report in," he barked over the comm. A chorus of affirmatives rang out as his squadrons launched. They erupted from their hangars just in time to see swarms of Nasat fighters swarming the orbital defenses. The space elevator buckled and snapped under the onslaught. "Engage at will!" Caleb roared, his fighter screaming towards the enemy. The dogfight was unlike anything in human history. Swarms of craft danced and wove at impossible speeds, energy weapons lashing out in dazzling light shows. Caleb's heightened connection let him pull off maneuvers that should have turned him to paste. He barrel-rolled through a Nasat formation, fusion torpedoes streaming from his craft to blast alien capital ships at point-blank range. On the ground, terrified civilians stared skyward at the ethereal light show. Streaks of fire crisscrossed the atmosphere as fighters dueled and died. But slowly, the tide began to turn. Earth's new ion cannons punched through Nasat shields. The alien targeting systems faltered against the planetary defense grid. Caleb saw his chance. The Nasat flagship loomed ahead, its shields flickering. "Cover me!" he shouted, pushing his fighter to maximum burn. Enemy fire saturated space around him, but he flew on. At the last possible second, Caleb ejected. His fighter slammed into the Nasat command deck at relativistic speeds. The alien vessel cracked like an egg, spewing atmosphere and bodies into the void. As Caleb's recovery pod parachuted towards the Pacific, he saw the remnants of the Nasat fleet fleeing into hyperspace. They'd done it. They'd won. But even as cheers erupted across comms channels, Caleb knew the real war was just beginning. Humanity had bloodied the Nasat's nose twice now. Next time, the gloves would come off completely. Caleb wiped the sweat from his brow as he surveyed the bustling activity in the Interdimensional Defense Initiative's command center. Massive holographic displays showed the fruits of humanity's labor, gleaming ion cannon platforms encircling major cities, their energy cores pulsing with stolen Nasat power. In orbit, newly christened starfighters and capital ships swarmed like angry hornets around the orbital shipyards. "Sir, we've got an urgent transmission from our deep cover assets," a young intelligence officer called out, her face pale. Caleb's stomach tightened as he absorbed the report. Across multiple star systems, the Nasat were mobilizing on an unprecedented scale. Factories churned out endless swarms of autonomous fighters and warships, their numbers dwarfing anything humanity could muster. "We need to hit them first," Caleb growled, banging his head on the war table. "If we let them bring that force to bear, Earth is finished." The next 48 hours were a whirlwind of tense negotiations and strategic planning. World leaders argued bitterly, but the specter of annihilation loomed large. Finally, Operation Counterstrike got the green light. Caleb's heart raced as he strapped into the cockpit of his X-3 bomber. All around him, pilots prepped for the assault on Varash, the Nasat staging world. "This is Reaper Lead," he broadcast. "All wings, report in." A chorus of affirmatives crackled over the comms. Caleb took a deep breath, then punched it. The fleet surged forward, hyperdrive engines howling as they tore a hole in space-time. They erupted into real space above Vorash, catching the Nasat completely off guard. Caleb's targeting computer lit up like a Christmas tree. "Fox 3!" he barked, unleashing a salvo of tac nukes. The warheads found their marks, vaporizing shield generators and anti-air emplacements in blinding flashes. Human fighters pounced on the disoriented Nasat defenders, energy weapons slicing through alien hulls. Caleb dove through the chaos, leading his bombers on precision strikes against hardened bunkers. With the orbital defenses neutralized, lumbering troop transports punched through the atmosphere. Caleb ditched his bomber, donning a heavily armored mech suit to join the ground assault. The streets of the alien city became a maelstrom of plasma fire and explosions. Caleb's HUD highlighted critical targets, drone factories, and command centers. He charged forward, servo-assisted muscles propelling him through withering barrages of alien firepower. "Push forward!" he roared over the squad channel. "We've got to take out those production hubs!" They fought, building to building, mech suits shrugging off hits that would vaporize unprotected infantry. Swarms of Nasat cyborg drones hurled themselves at the human lines in suicidal waves, but Earth's troops held firm. Just as victory seemed within reach, the sky split open. An enormous Nasat flagship materialized, disgorging countless dropships. Caleb's blood ran cold as he recognized the insignia. High Warlord Raxath himself had joined the fray. The alien reinforcements slammed into the human assault like a tidal wave, scattering squads and cutting off Caleb from his troops. He found himself separated, fighting a desperate rearguard action as he fell back towards the Nasat command ship. Aboard the alien vessel, Caleb came face to face with Raxath. The towering Nasat warlord activated a crackling energy sword, mandibles clicking in anticipation. What followed was a duel for the ages. Raxath's inhuman speed and strength were matched by Caleb's iron will and neural-linked armor. Their blades clashed again and again, neither combatant able to land a killing blow. Caleb felt his strength flagging, his armor's power core nearly depleted. With one final desperate lunge, he feinted left, then drove his blade up and through Raxath's carapace. The alien warlord's eyes widened in disbelief as the energy sword erupted from his back. With their leader fallen, the Nasat's will to fight evaporated. Human bombers swarmed over Varash, reducing factories and staging areas to ash. As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, Caleb watched the burning world recede. They'd bought Earth time, but at a terrible cost. And as his ship's sensors picked up garbled transmissions about some new Nasat Supreme Overlord, Caleb knew the true test was yet to come. The echoes of victory at Varash had barely faded when intelligence reports painted a chilling new picture. Caleb's fists clenched as he absorbed the intercepted transmissions. "Zarath the Devourer," he muttered, scrolling through grainy images of a being that defied description. So the Nasat were just pawns all along. The war room erupted into frantic activity. Screens flickered with schematics of the Apocalypse cannons, weapons capable of cracking planets like eggs. Caleb slammed his hand on the table. "We hit them now before they're ready," he growled. "One last push to end this nightmare for good." Days blurred as humanity threw everything into a final, desperate armada. Skeletal orbital shipyards worked overtime, churning out hybrid vessels overflowing with stolen Nasat tech. The air thrummed with the sound of antimatter reactors spooling up. Caleb stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Defiance, as the fleet prepared to jump. He took a deep breath, feeling the weight of billions of lives on his shoulders. "All ships, this is Admiral Scott," he broadcast. "You know the stakes. Let's go save our species." Space tore open as the armada surged forward. They erupted into the Nasat refuge system amid a hail of plasma fire. Caleb's neural link lit up with damage reports and frantic comm chatter. "Bravo Wing, peel off and engage those frigates," he barked. "Charlie, form up on me. We're punching through to the inner defenses." The void became a maelstrom of energy weapons and nuclear fire. Human fighters wove between streams of Nasat interceptors, their hulls glowing from near misses. Caleb guided the fleet like a conductor, exploiting gaps in the enemy lines. "There!" he shouted, highlighting a fluctuation in the fortress world's shields. "All ships, concentrate fire." The Defiance shuddered as its main guns unleashed hellish energies. For a moment, the planetary defenses wavered. It was all the opening they needed. "All ships ramming speed," Caleb roared. What remained of the human fleet formed up, a spear of steel and fire hurtling towards the breach. Caleb felt the Defiance buckling around him as they tore through layer after layer of Nasat defenses. Warning klaxons blared. The Defiance was coming apart. Caleb sprinted for his personal fighter, the deck disintegrating beneath his feet. He dove into the cockpit just as the flagship's reactor went critical. The explosion flung his craft free, shields barely holding against the inferno. Through a haze of static and debris, Caleb saw it, the central spire housing the Apocalypse cannon. Lightning arced between massive focusing arrays as the weapon prepared to fire. Caleb's hands danced over the controls, his fighter screaming towards the target. Alien point defense systems filled the air with a web of death. He rolled and juked, feeling shots clip his wings. The spire loomed closer. Caleb ejected at the last possible second. His fighter slammed into the structure's base, blasting open an entry point. He hit the ground hard, armor absorbing the impact. Alien corridors twisted before him, reality itself seeming to warp. At the heart of the maze stood Zarath, a being of pure energy, crackling with malevolent power. "Insignificant speck," the creature's voice boomed in Caleb's mind. "Your species is nothing but fuel for the great entropy." Cosmic vistas of dead worlds assaulted Caleb's senses. He stumbled, overwhelmed by visions of Earth reduced to ash. His implants sparked and sizzled, pushed beyond their limits. "No!" Caleb snarled, forcing one foot in front of the other. "Humanity isn't done yet." He lunged forward, energy blade igniting. Zarath's tentacles lashed out, each blow threatening to shatter Caleb's very atoms. But he pressed on, inch by bloody inch. With a final, primal scream, Caleb plunged his blade into Zarath's core. The being's death throes shook the fabric of reality. Caleb stumbled back as the spire began to implode. He dragged himself to an escape pod, vision blurring. The last thing he saw before losing consciousness was the apocalypse world collapsing in on itself, taking the Nasat's last hope with it. Caleb drifted in the void, his battered body failing. Through cracked viewports, he watched the graveyard of human and Nasat ships alike. A bitter victory, but a victory nonetheless. As darkness crept in at the edges of his vision, a new light appeared. Human rescue ships, homing in on his distress beacon. Caleb managed a weak smile. Earth was safe. Humanity would endure. His eyes closed, secure in the knowledge that a new generation would carry on where he left off. The torch had been passed.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.